There's been a lot of slander, my DGens, against our girl Evelyn Chevalier. And so today, I wanted to address a few different points, but also share some tips and tricks and mechanics to make sure that you're getting the most out of your cute blondie. As always, here is what we're going to be covering today. There is a lot, so let's just get right into it. But before we get into any gameplay content, I wanted to quickly talk a little bit about power level, right? Because I've got Pride up here, and for the most part, I do agree. Evelyn, we've got in T0.5, she is, for the most part, on par with the rest of these characters in the same tier. That said though, she does have this expert tag down here, and what this means is if you play her well, if you're able to pull off all of her different combos and get the perfect skill dodges and all of that, they're saying that you can achieve T0 level with Evelyn. Now, this is the part where I would disagree. I think that that's just not true. And that's okay because these are just opinions, my opinion and Pridewin's opinion. I just don't think that anybody comes even close to Miyabi, even if you play them perfectly. Even Evelyn. And so the next point I wanted to address is, well, is Evelyn skippable? My answer is yes. Ask yourself this question. Could you live without Jane, Yanagi, Juyuan, Ellen? And if you can live without them, then you can also live without Evelyn too. And of course, I'm talking from a meta point of view. As always, pull for waifu if you do like our blonde hottie. I would strongly suggest though that you give her a go in the trial before you actually pull her. Her playstyle is rather interesting, is probably the best way to put it. Now, there is one last thing that I did want to say, and it's that if we're talking value, I think that Burnice is probably the most must pull out of all of these characters over here. Ellen as well. In terms of DPS, Burnice just represents way too much value. And as a lot of people are finding out, to really make Evelyn work, you're really looking for the lighter as well as the Astra. It's kind of like she's locked in to that team for her to be like peak performance. And for that to happen, you have to roll for a dude. And that's completely fine. All that aside, let's get inside of Evelyn. And as always, let's start with the mindset, but let me cancel these pigs real quick. All right, so the Evelyn mindset, the core gameplay, as most of you hopefully know by now, is essentially we want to be able to spam those mini chain attacks. And what that looks like is this. We want to be able to pull off as many of these as possible. And so if you aren't familiar with this system, let me give you a quick overview. Taking actions charges up this bar over here. When the bar is at least 50%, what we can do is hold basic attack or hold skill, and it will consume 50% of the bar to do this big slash thing. When we consume the bar and do the big slash, we also get a stack. What we want to do is get up to 3 stacks. So as you can see, I'm at 2 stacks now. And then consuming one more time, I'm going to get 3 stacks. And using 3 stacks, I can hold basic attack again to get that mini chain attack. So bada bing, bada boom, and homeboy is getting his ass spanked. And so therefore, if we're trying to get as many of those chain attacks as possible, that means we're trying to get as many of these stacks as possible. And to get as many stacks as possible, it means that we're trying to get as much gauge as possible. And so ultimately, what that means is that Evelyn is going to be spending a lot of time on field to be able to get that gauge. All right, so let's start with the first concern, and it's the overstacking of the gauge. You guys hear me talk about overstacking all the time, and Evelyn is kind of no different. But if you are really hardcore and really sweaty like my ballsack, you can actually go really deep into this. And so let me talk about overstacking first. So you can see I have like a little bit over 50% gauge over here, and I see I have my EX skill. I'm gonna use my EX skill, and it looks like it's at 100%. Really, it's gone to 105%, but it can't take that much, so I'm only at 100%. So I've lost about 5%. We don't want that, my guys. We want to be able to get as many stacks as possible so we can use as many chain attacks as possible, right? So don't overstack. And how you don't overstack, for me, I personally, whenever it goes over 50% like this, I'm going to go send it. I'm going to send my hold basic attack. So if I see that I'm almost at 50%, I'm going to use my hold basic attack first, and then skill, and then hold basic attack again. I am not going to risk it for the biscuit because I want more of the stacks, more of the chain attacks. All right, but here is where you can go like super sweaty ball sacks, right? You can learn the amount of gauge every single action takes. So for example, I'm going to use EX skill, and let's look at the gauge. Bada bing, bada boom, and you can see it actually fills up exactly 50%. And so if you do want to be sweaty and you really want to push it to the limit, go for that 50%, right? We are at 50% now, and I've already blown it. Like that's why I don't do it. I just risk overstacking all the time. But let's say that I'm not a complete noob, right? And let's get to 50%. 1 or 2 more hits, boom, that's exactly 50%. And you're like, bro, my mathematics is like on point. I'm going to EX skill, and then I'm going to hold basic attack all the way down, and you can see we are going all the way to chain attack like you're a mathematician, you know? You absolutely can hyper optimize like that. And the reason why you would is because, for example, we have Nicole's ultra short big black hole thing, defense down thing, right? And then so you might be able to calculate it all and send it so that all of the damage makes it within the defense down of the black hole. That is just way too sweaty for me. I am just going to use it the moment it comes up. So I can see like I have below 50%. This is a safe time to use my EX skill because I'm not going to overstack and I'm going to instantly blow my load. It's freaking dank unless you actually like plan out every single move that you're going to take from 0. Like maybe doing like 3 basics is going to get you to 50 and then you're going to do the EX skill and then you're going to hold basic attack and then you're going to get the chain attack. Like dude, that shit like really freaking dank. Just play simply like me. You see that gauge is red. I'm just going to hold basic attack. Screw that shit, man. Just do it like this. It's okay. All right, and so the next point I wanted to talk about is about the ultimate, and it's that some people are going to tell you, oh, you should hold on to your ultimate until the enemy gets stunned. My answer to that is no, because the ultimate gets you so much value in that you get a 1/3 refund on your chain attack. So if I use my chain attack now, I'm going to have 1 left over instead of consuming all 3. Bada bing, bada boom, you can see that is a tax deduction. Especially if you're going to be running a double support team like this team right here. But more than this, most people right now are running the Astra Nicole double support team. You can't wait until the boss gets stunned. It's going to be freaking ages. So yeah, my advice would be that for the first ultimate, just use it as soon as possible. Now, I'm not saying don't stack your buffs and stuff. So for this team right here, I would be, for example, going for Lucy first, and then going into my Nicole, bada bing, bada boom, and then going back into my Evelyn to then use the ult to make sure that I get like some gigasick value from it, right? 209k is pretty good. All right, so the next concept I want to talk about is if you are not tethered to the enemy like this, I don't have a rope. And the easy fix to this, and this is without energy, is to EX skill and dodge right after to cancel it. So watch this, boom, now we are tethered. We're soulmates. So let me show you guys that again. EX and then dodge cancel to get out of it real quick. Like just like that. Now, if I let the EX skill go, this is what it looks like. And that's just not very much damage. Like look at this pitiful damage. It's like 1k, that's like 4k total. It just really isn't worth your time using a non-energy EX skill. You could even do more damage just by auto attacking like that. So that's why my recommendation would be to just tap the E and then dodge cancel it and then just do whatever. It's going to get you more damage overall. Now that being said though, it's very unlikely you're going to need to do that. I'm just telling you that just in case you do find yourself in a situation where you do need to. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the skill dodge. And to use the skill dodge, we have to have this tether already. And only when we have the tether, when the enemy attacks, we can tap E and we can do the skill dodge and all of that. And so the question becomes, should I put in the effort to figure out the skill dodge to actually incorporate it as part of my playstyle? And so my answer to that question is yes, but make it one of your last priorities. Now, I do want to take it one step further, and it's that you can do the skill dodge with a parry. So let me try this like this, right? So as you can see, the Evelyn did like that follow-up attack, and then I got to do the defensive assist with my Nicole, got some days on homeboy, and we're just getting crazy value, right? Now, remember that the main reason why we want to do that defensive assist is because we get more of that gauge, right? This gauge over here. All right, and I'm going to do the dodge, and then you're going to see we're going to get some gauge. You can see that is quite a fair bit, right? Now, what I'm saying is that we can combine that with the defensive assist. So let me try that, like that, right? And you can see Evelyn is doing all sorts of crazy shit, and she has a lot of gauge. All right, so I'm going to do it again, and you can see how much gauge she actually gets. That was a full half bar. Which is a lot, to be honest. So I would say in the long run, it is something that is pretty cool to learn, especially because it feels really freaking sick. Look at Evelyn, she has a full bar now that gives freaking 50% gauge. However, if you do end up becoming a pro at using that dodge counter thing, I do have a word of warning, and it's that if I come over to Evelyn's recommended set, so I click any one of these, recommend, you can see that the recommended set is actually Woodpecker Electro, and Woodpecker Electro gives you bonus attack, and you can get 3 stacks of 9%, totaling 27%. However, what you will see is that it's 1 stack for basic attack, 1 stack for EX special, but 1 stack for dodge counter. So what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, do like the really cool, perfect skill dodge into the clang clang, but you're still going to need to use the dodge counter to make sure you're triggering your Woodpecker Electro. Now, there is the alternate version, which is especially if you're using Woodpecker Electro, don't bother with using the perfect dodge. Don't even worry about it. Just use your dodge counters so you can maintain that buff right there I would say that is probably what I would recommend for most non-sweaty players. But if you're like me, who went some weird set that nobody really recommended, then maybe you could try pulling off again, the perfect dodge into the clang clang. And whilst I'm here, I might as well talk about discs, right? Because again, as you can see, I'm not really using the recommended stuff. That said though, this second one over here is absolute dog water. Do not touch 4-piece Inferno Metal. For your W engine, if you're not running signature, it's Marcado easily. Marcado is actually fantastic. Everything works really, really well for her. And I want you guys to have a look at this one down here. While the target is under an attribute anomaly, this effect is increased by an additional 9.6%. Now, couple of different ways to trigger this, right? And the first is, well, Evelyn, our girl, is flame. So run her with Colada, run her with Lucy, and we've got an all-fire team. But the other option for triggering this extra 9.6% attack is actually to do the double support with Astra and Nicole. Juice them up with the Anomaly Mastery, just like this one over here, and you'll be triggering Corruption. When you trigger Corruption, then our Eve with Marcado is going to get that extra 9.6%. So yeah, in terms of discs, I was like, oh, Hormone Punk, I had a few nice discs lying around, so I'm just gonna run it. To be honest, if I had better substats, I would probably run this guy over here. So this is the Woodpecker Electro with the Branch and Blade Song. Now, there is one last combination that I would recommend, and it's 2-piece Branch and Blade Song for 16% crit damage, 2-piece of some other offensive one like Hormone Punk, which will give you 10% attack. You could use 2-piece of the fire set. So I'm talking Inferno Metal, this one over here, for plus 10% fire damage. That's probably what I would run if I had really good substats, which I don't. So in total, you'd be getting plus 10% fire damage, plus 16% crit damage from Branch and Blade Song, and then plus 10% attack from Hormone Punk. So 2, 2, 2. And the uptime on that is 100%. Super easy. Don't even need to think about it. Like, oh, I need to do some dodge counters here and there. You just freaking run it down. All right. All of that being said, there is one last thing I did want to cover, and it's called chain canceling, chain combo canceling, something like that. So let me get Homeboy up so I can beat his ass a little bit. If you're able to push the boss, and I'm talking the bosses that lets you do 3 chain attacks into stun, then you can pull off what people call chain attack canceling. And it's essentially saying, oh, I want Eve to take as many chain attacks as we can because so much of her damage is loaded in those chain attacks. And so to pull this off, what we do is we're going to send an enemy into the stun mode without Eve, so that Eve pops up as an option, and then we can take the Eve chain attack. Then after that, we're going to be presented with the choices of the 2 others. We want neither, we want to cancel it, and so for PC, it's like middle mouse button. I'm not sure what it is for controller, but you want to stop the chain attack there and then swap out of Eve into another character and then trigger the chain attack again with a different character. And so that's going to let us select Eve again to chain attack again, which means that we get a total of 2 chain attacks with Evelyn. So that's the concept, right? But here are my thoughts on chain attack canceling. In general, it can be worth it, but just know that you're giving other things up to pull this off, right? Namely, first of all, you're giving up a whole nother chain attack because you're only going to get 2. You're going to get 2 Evelyn chain attacks versus getting 3. Not to mention the bang boo at the end, right? That stuff actually adds up, especially if you're using one of the stronger ones. If you only use Evelyn in the chain attacks and you didn't prepare beforehand, then your kaboom is going to be not at 100% stacks, right? There are 4 stacks at 4% at max kaboom. And if you don't use your bang boo and you don't use one other character or maybe 2 other characters, then you're not going to have all 4 stacks. So you could be missing 4 to 8% attack by not using other characters in your chain attack. Another trade-off is going back over to Evelyn and the Marcato. Remember, while the target is under an attribute anomaly, we get an additional 9.6% attack. And using the chain attacks from Astra and Nicole or Colada and Lucy might actually push the enemy into the attribute anomaly, into burn or into corruption, and it's going to get you an extra 9.6% attack for 8 seconds. These are the kinds of things that you lose that most people don't actually think about when you're doing like the chain attack cancel. Now, of course, if you have your mind on all of these things and you've stacked it up all beforehand, great, pull it off. But just remember that there are things being lost for not taking chain attacks. For me personally, I've just stopped trying to overcomplicate it. I just run all 3 of them. I try to activate the chain attack combo with like Nicole or something. I follow up with Eve. I use somebody else, it might be Astra, and then maybe I end with Nicole. I always end on a support to make sure that I get the quick assist. And the reason I want the quick assist is because of the Astral Voice buff. Whenever any squad member enters the field using quick assist, then we get the 8% buff. This guy stacks up to 3 times. We get 24% attack. And so Evelyn can finally take the field via quick assist, get all of the buffs fully juiced out, and peg the shit out of the enemy. Now, the other reason why I'm not a massive fan of like the chain attack cancel is because, especially on these smaller mobs like these guys, even just the elites, you can't actually pull it off. You can only pull it off on the big guys, right? Because you can only chain attack twice on these guys. So let's say I do get him in, I use Evelyn, and then I'm going to cancel the next chain attack, and then, oh, there's nothing really to do here. Like, I just kind of wasted it. Like, if I play with the mindset of just, okay, use my DPS first, and then always end with the support so that I can quick assist them in, for a shitty player like me, it just reduces the risks of misplay. So I'm going to put Homeboy into stun, and then I'm going to use my Evelyn, and then I'm going to use my Nicole right after, and then I'm going to quick assist back in with Evelyn, and boom, wow, I do so much damage, and I didn't screw up. That's the main thing. All right, my guys, I think I've covered off quite a fair bit with Evelyn today. I'm sorry if this turned out to be a really long video. The footage is actually like, oh my lord. But do let us know if there are any other tips and tricks that I've missed, things that I may not know, things that the rest of us may not know. Let us know down in the comments below. I would really like to optimize a little bit. If this video has helped you though, I would appreciate it if you shared it around like how people share their wives. But otherwise, this is the end of the video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.